Now, I've seen many Scrum teams not using a sprint goal and getting into a real mess in danger of turning it into ScrumBut. Why? Because they almost always end up focusing on getting all the stories they take into sprint done, which is the wrong thing to focus on. This is a massive dysfunction and is a slippery slope. So why is that? Well, let's talk about it. Now, ScrumBut is one of the most widespread phenomena among Scrum teams. It results from many misconceptions about Scrum and the impact of its adoption, stemming from a misinterpretation or selective adoption of Scrum principles. ScrumBut represents a diluted version that undermines the intended benefits of Scrum. Now, I'm concentrating on teams not using a sprint goal, but there are many other examples of ScrumBut. For example, we use Scrum, but having a daily Scrum is too expensive, so we only have it once a week. We use Scrum, but retrospectives are a waste of time, so we skip them. Now, before I get into the pitfalls of not using a single sprint goal, Scrum Masters, if you're not using a sprint goal, that's on you. Come on, step in, help. That is why you're there. You're the Scrum Master in a Scrum team. You're there to do Scrum. And as the expert in Scrum, you should know the Scrum Guide, which is completely crystal clear that the objective of the sprint is a single sprint goal. So let's be clear. To get the benefit of using Scrum, you need to be working on a single product or service. There needs to be a clear vision provided by the product owner. And from that vision, you need to have clear goals identified. You work on one of these goals at a time. A product owner will decide when enough has been achieved against this goal in order to move to the next goal. A product backlog should only contain work related to the goal you're working on. Each sprint is dedicated to creating value towards that product goal. And to this end, the team decide on a single sprint goal that will get them closer to realizing the product goal. And if you don't do this, you reduce your ability to innovate and inspect and adapt during the sprint. Now, the sprint will end up like a mini waterfall project. By creating all the stories up front prior to sprint, you focus on getting them all done in sprint and then reflect on it at the end. This is waterfall. Instead, Scrum teams should focus on a specific goal, such as set up deployment pipeline and release an empty site to production. Now, you can create a few stories prior to sprint, but don't try to create them all. Then work on the goal as a team and discover what is needed to achieve the goal. It does not matter if you don't complete all the stories you took into sprint. The only thing that matters is that you achieve the sprint goal, getting it to done and adding an incremental value to the product goal. One of the many reasons that I believe there's no value in story points or burn down charts. In fact, I think it's worse than that. These things are a total waste of time. If you want to have metrics that actually have any value, then you should use flow metrics. Now check this video out to see why and how to start. If you don't use a sprint goal, then the first thing that usually happens is it causes a lack of alignment against the product backlog. Yeah, teams take items into sprint from the backlog, but the set that they choose don't make sense together. The next issue is that the team ends up not working as a team. They end up working in silos. One of the very things Scrum is designed to stop. This happens because the individual team members work on single items by themselves, because there's no shared goal to bring them together. And the items they're working on don't relate to each other. It's essentially mini waterfall. And next, it leads to a lack of focus and causes the daily Scrum just to be a status update, where everyone's working on separate items. So it's just not possible to talk about progress towards a single defined valuable increment because there isn't one. Look, it also makes it more difficult to define the roadmap for the product and makes it harder to engage with stakeholders as they simply can't see the value in the sprint as a whole. And it can make the Scrum review session difficult or even pointless. Another side effect of not having a single sprint goal is that it increases the team's work in progress and context switching, which results in reduced morale and lower quality work overall, and of course increases the time to deliver. And sprint planning is made much more painful and takes longer because you end up talking about a lot of different pieces of work which are not aligned or related to each other. There's no shared goal. Plus, you end up following a plan instead of responding to change. Very hard to respond to change when you've got a lot of unrelated work, but if you've got a single shared goal, it's much easier. It also reduces innovation, the inspect and adapt element, empiricism. It's just reduced to the retro. That's not how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to work together on the problem during the sprint. So, if you're not using a sprint goal and have been thinking that this is fine, I would suggest that you sit down as a team and have a chat about it. A final thought. Now, it could be that your product backlog really is made up of lots of unrelated pieces of work and that you've got many product owners, and that's the way you want it to be. You don't have a single product or service vision and you can't create product goals. Now, in this case, I'd urge you to really think about why you're using Scrum in the first place. Scrum is not designed to be used in this scenario. you won't get the benefit of Scrum here. Instead, you should look at Kanban. Now, another anti-pattern that results in low or no value delivery is where you don't focus and work with the customer. Now check this video out to see why and what you can do about it. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Those things really make a huge difference and I would greatly appreciate it. Okay, that is it for this one. Stay safe, stay humble, and I'll have another Agile thought for you next Thursday.